A trained Shaolin monk can climb 1,500 stone steps at that pace without ever opening his mouth to breathe. Not once. Not even near the top where most people would already be gasping. Elite modern athletes measure their VO2 max in a lab and call it elite. These monks built the same kind of engine on a mountain with no lab, no equipment, and no idea what VO2 max even was. And here's what's wild. A young monk seals his lips shut, places a single pebble between his teeth, and starts climbing before sunrise. If that pebble drops, if his mouth opened even for a second, the climb doesn't count. He walks back down and starts again. By the top, his robe is soaked, his legs are shaking, and he still hasn't taken one breath through his mouth. That's not a myth for tourists, that's a method. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why it builds lung capacity and carbon dioxide tolerance that modern cardio training physically cannot replicate. But here's the part that actually matters. The part almost nobody explains correctly. It was never about the mountain. The mountain was just a stress test. The real training was happening somewhere you can't see from the outside at all. Modern endurance training follows one predictable pattern: increase mileage, increase pace. And the second the intensity rises, open the mouth. Every runner does it. Every fighter does it. Every CrossFit athlete does it the moment the set gets hard. It feels logical. Bigger airway, more air in, more oxygen delivered, right? Here's the limitation nobody talks about. Mouth breathing skips the one respiratory structure that actually improves how oxygen reaches your muscles. It trains your body to panic at carbon dioxide levels a Shaolin monk would consider a warm-up. Picture the opposite, generation after generation on the same mountain, breathing exclusively through the nose, enforced not by willpower but by a pebble, a coin, or a mouthful of water they couldn't afford to lose. The Shaolin Temple sits at the base of Song Mountain, one of China's 5 sacred peaks. No treadmills, no heart rate monitors, no interval timer beeping at you. Just the mountain and breath. Here's what almost every fitness video gets wrong about Shaolin training. Kung Fu and breathing were never two separate things. They were the same practice. Before a monk ever threw a strike, he learned to breathe low and controlled, a method now known as diaphragmatic or reverse breathing, where the belly expands on the inhale and the diaphragm does the actual work instead of the shoulders. The mountain steps were where that breathing got tested under real stress. Seal the lips. Hold something small in the mouth, a pebble, a coin, sometimes water. Run uphill on uneven stone until the object proves the breathing never broke. There was no way to cheat. Gasp once and the pebble falls or the water spills. The trainer at the bottom sees it instantly. The run doesn't count. Sound familiar? It should. Warrior cultures on the opposite side of the planet independently discovered the exact same enforcement mechanism, forcing nasal breathing through an object that makes cheating physically impossible. Not through willpower. Different mountains, different centuries. The same discovery. The body adapts to what it's forced to do, not to what it's told to do. Here's what happens inside the body during this restriction. Most people stop the explanation at nasal breathing is better. That's not even close to the real mechanism. Doesn't restricting yourself to nasal breathing just slow you down? Actually, no. Runners who adapted to nasal-only breathing over several months reach the same oxygen consumption as mouth breathers. Same oxygen, but with a significantly lower respiratory rate. Fewer breaths doing more work each. Nasal breathing under load isn't a handicap. It's an efficiency adaptation. It takes months to build exactly the kind of gradual stress a young monk was placed under. Starting in childhood, climbing higher with every passing year. A boy starts small, the lower steps, an easy pace, a small object held loosely in the mouth. Daily, not a scheduled workout. As routine as morning chores. Months pass. The distance grows. The stone steps give way to rough forest trail. The object gets harder to hold. Pebble, then coin, then a full mouthful of water sealed through switchbacks and false summits. Older monks train the younger ones, never their own instructors. Someone who loves you lets you quit. Someone who's only responsible for your discipline doesn't. So the climbs were run in pairs, one setting a pace just past what the other thought he could survive. It never stopped at the stairs. Between climbs, monks held low stances for minutes at a time. Every strike in every form was timed to a single exhale. Lose your breath in a sparring match, and you lost the exchange. The mountain wasn't cardio day bolted onto fu. It was the same skill under a different kind of load, trained everywhere constantly until nobody had to think about it anymore. By the time a monk was trusted to run messages between temples, nasal breathing under extreme effort wasn't a technique. It was automatic, as unconscious as blinking. Here's the mechanism. Two things happen when you breathe through the nose that mouth breathing simply switches off. First, nasal breathing forces air through the paranasal sinuses where your body produces nitric oxide. Nitric oxide opens blood vessels in the lungs. It improves how efficiently oxygen actually moves from the air into your blood. Mouth breathing skips the sinuses. It skips that entire mechanism. That pressure behind your nose when you're fighting the urge to gasp on a hill, that's the delivery system at work, not a warning sign. Second, nasal breathing holds on to carbon dioxide longer. CO2 is what actually triggers your urge to breathe faster. Mouth breathing expels it quickly, which keeps your tolerance low. Your body panics at levels that are completely manageable. Nasal breathing restricts how fast CO2 leaves, forcing your body to tolerate more of it before triggering that panic response. One study on healthy adults found nasal breathing produced significantly faster, greater muscle reoxygenation after exercise compared to mouth breathing. Better recovery at the exact same power output. That's the gap between a beginner spitting out his water 2 minutes into a climb and a monk descending the same steps decades later, breathing like nothing happened. Put those two mechanisms together and you get the whole picture. More nitric oxide means more oxygen actually gets delivered where it's needed. Higher CO2 tolerance means the body waits longer before demanding another breath. Neither one shows up on a scale or a stopwatch after a single session. Both compound quietly every single day for years. Exactly the timeline the monks were working with. Exactly the timeline most modern training programs never give themselves. Most people assume mouth breathing under hard effort is simply more effective. More air in, more oxygen, more output. The research says otherwise. Nasal-adapted runners consume the same oxygen as mouth breathers, just with fewer breaths to get it. The efficiency was never in the volume. It was in what each single breath accomplished. This doesn't prove nasal breathing makes you faster on day one. It proves the same output feels dramatically easier once the adaptation locks in. Over 1,500 steps climbed daily for years. Easier is the entire difference between a legend and a body that gives out. What modern training actually lost is this. Breathing efficiency matters more than a breathing volume. Most cardio today teaches your body to breathe more. The mountain runner method trained the body to breathe better. Deeper diaphragm engagement, higher CO2 tolerance, nitric oxide on every inhale, a forced rhythm that kills the chaotic panting that quietly drains your energy over distance. Try it right now. Take a sip of water. Hold it. Don't swallow. Now breathe. Feel that? Every breath forced through your nose. Your diaphragm engaging on its own because your chest can't expand the way it does with your mouth open. Imagine climbing stone steps under that exact restriction for 20, 30 minutes without swallowing once. That's a single mountain runner session. The burn in your diaphragm, the pressure behind your sinuses, the desperate pull to just open your mouth. That discomfort isn't a problem to fix. That discomfort is the adaptation happening in real time. You don't need a sacred mountain to start. Week 1 is walking. 10 minutes of deliberate nasal-only breathing on a brisk walk 3 times a week. Belly expanding on every inhale, not the chest. Once 10 minutes feels easy, push to 20. Week 3, a slow jog, nasal breathing the entire time. The instant you feel the pull to open your mouth, slow down until your nose can keep up. Let breathing set the pace, never the other way around. Week 5, bring in the water. Fill your mouth, walk 5 minutes. Spit. Still sealed the whole time? Push to 10 minutes. Don't attempt this while running until nasal breathing during a jog already feels automatic. The monks built this over years, starting in childhood, with the intensity climbing gradually the entire time. Rushing it in a few weeks won't hurt you, but it won't build anything that lasts either. This is a respiratory adaptation. Respiratory adaptations take months, not days. Here's the part that trips up almost everyone who tries this. The hardest barrier isn't physical. It's the moment your brain screams you're suffocating while your oxygen is completely fine. That panic is trained, not a hard biological limit. The only way to untrain it is sitting inside that discomfort at a manageable intensity over and over until your nervous system finally believes you're safe. That's the entire mechanism behind why a monk could climb a silent mountain while most people can't survive a light jog with their mouth closed. Those monks weren't training for a race. No finish line, no medal, no audience. The mountain was simply how their bodies were built. One sealed mouth climb at a time for centuries, long before anyone had a word for VO2 max. Their lungs weren't superhuman by accident. They were the product of a method modern fitness quietly abandoned for more mileage and more mouth-breathing grinding. The lungs don't need more air. They need better air. Here's what I want you to do. Not a 1-week trial, not a 4-week experiment, a 16-week commitment to mountain runner breathing adaptation. Start this week. Begin with 10-minute nasal breathing walks 3 times per week. Establish your baseline. Record how difficult it feels. Track your progression. Every week, try to extend duration or increase pace slightly. By week 4, you'll notice breathing during easy effort feels completely different. By week 8, your resting breathing will have changed. You'll naturally breathe deeper and slower. By week 16, your lung capacity will have increased dramatically. Your endurance will have improved beyond recognition. Not because you trained harder, because you trained smarter. If you are committing to mountain runner nasal breathing training, drop a comment saying mountain lungs and let me build a community of people who understand that breathing efficiency builds more capability than pure volume ever could. And if you want detailed breathing coaching, how to handle the panic response, how to progress safely with water holds, or how to combine this with other Shaolin methods, hit subscribe and turn on notifications because we're building the most complete respiratory training community on the internet. People who understand that the lungs need quality, not quantity. The Shaolin monks discovered that superhuman lungs aren't built through more air. They're built through better air. Nasal breathing, diaphragmatic engagement, nitric oxide production, carbon dioxide tolerance, progressive mountain conditioning. That's the entire system. That's all you need. The decision is simple. Train your lungs to breathe more or train your lungs to breathe better. The commitment is patient, 16 weeks of gradual adaptation. The results are inevitable. From normal breathing capacity to superhuman endurance. From mouth-breathing panic to nasal calm. From gasping at stairs to climbing mountains in silence. Now take that first nasal breath, begin the walks, and I'll see you in the next video.